With Rex now in the game, and after spending way more hours than I care to admit attempting to grow one on the No AI server, I decided to take a break and roll back around to the other apex currently on the scene. Triceratops. Last time I touched Trike, the animal itself was in early horde testing and didn't yet have its sparring. That particular test had its issues, and after growing one once, I had absolutely no interest in growing another just to test sparring. Which means after 5 months of completely ignoring it, I prepared to throw my trike out of the pan and straight into the fire. See, the smart trike players, the ones who actually enjoy being a lumbering mass of flesh, they spent the last 5 months practicing with it, learning all the tricks, preparing themselves for Rex's release. I did not. So to say that I was nervous growing something for 12 to 14 hours, knowing that I didn't have a single clue what I was doing, was an understatement. I made my way to the nearest sanctuary to get started. This area has been somewhat of a war zone, and today was no different. I raced across the bridge as fast as my little sausage legs would carry me, spotting a crouching Rex and then nearly taking out the knees of an adult Cerado. I was at his mercy, but thankfully he allowed me to live. It's hard enough to get started without adult carnivores camping the sanctuaries for easy kills. Other babies, though, those I anticipated. The juvenile Rex that approached me to first observe, then attack, was going to be my first challenge. With Rexy McLag teleporting randomly around, I backed myself up a tree root. Because why not? I knew he'd mess up at some point, and sure enough, when I charged at him, he was too quick to loop around and come back, taking a set of horns to the face. Before I'd even healed from that encounter, 2 young Carnos spotted me. The larger of the 2 was my only real concern. But if I was going to eat in peace, I knew I'd need to deal with these little flies buzzing around me. We ran around the sanctuary for a while before one of them finally messed up and became the bowling pin he was always destined to be. The other one backed off quickly, having eaten from the corpse of the Rex I'd killed previously, and decided that trying to hunt the squeaky potato wasn't the best way to remain among the living. With dusk falling, I knew I needed to get to a more quiet place. Away from the sanctuary a bit, so I wouldn't get stuck with the bees and the prowling adults. Speaking of prowling adults, that Rex about gave me a heart attack. Eventually, the migration zone moved to the western side of the map. I began my journey. I needed to move across the map, not just around one zone, if I wanted to become a Prime Elder. This, at least, wasn't a change in how I usually play when growing anyway. And with more movement, I hoped to find more action to practice driving this party bus of an animal. First, I just had to get across the bridge without being mauled. Then the real travel began. I got to my food, spent the afternoon refueling, and then set out to follow the migration back across the map. While attempting to take an alternate route as an overweight mountain goat in hopes of passing through an extra patrol or two, I got stuck in a really exceptionally nice hole. Well, I had food, I had water, and it was dark. My first attempt to unstuck didn't work, so I laid down and took a little siesta while I waited out the cooldown and the night. As soon as the sun came up, I repositioned myself. I didn't know if it was true, but I'd been told to face your tail in the direction you wanted to go before using the unstuck command. It moved me, that's for sure. And I was concerned for a moment that I'd been placed in a possibly worse position, inside the rock face itself. Whoops. But then I ran toward the light, and the next thing I knew, I was looking back at my rocky prison and making my way back into the migration zone, which had conveniently returned to West Rail as the sun rose. Now, I hadn't gotten far into the zone again, though, when I spotted a few packies. I expected they'd just run by, but when they stared at me instead, I knew something was up. What? Oh, I see. Mixed pack. Two Carnos, 3 Packies, and a fresh spawn Rex. Fun. The Carnos were my only concern. They couldn't charge me, but they could definitely do more damage overall than the Packies could. And then it became very clear that they were your typical mix pack when both Carnos died in exactly the same way, in almost exactly the same spot. With their heavy hitters dead, the Packies decided to start screaming in an attempt to draw in something else to kill me. Ha! Fat chance I was going to stick around and let that happen. Yeah, they were faster, but they're mix packers. Not exactly the sharpest knives in the drawer. I ran through another bush after charging at one of them, and that was that. They either gave up the chase, or, based on them still screaming where I had previously been, they somehow lost sight of the 2-ton ball of meat rolling away down the hill. Once you reach a certain size as trike, very few things even glance your way anymore. I was hoping to come across a subrex or two, but they must have been living on the Dibble Island, growing fat off of AI dibbles that don't really fight back. That didn't mean, though, that adult rexes weren't out on the prowl, looking for easy targets. With their ability to pin or fracture just about anything, including adult trikes, the instant I spotted the adult rex headed my way, I turned tail. See, not only was I far too slow to outrun a rex if it got too close, I also stood absolutely no chance fighting a rex, because it would simply pin me. No, I needed to break line of sight and get out of here, without letting him get within ambush distance. Once I thought I'd gotten away, I found a bush to lie down and regain stamina. I hoped he'd pass right on by, assuming I'd followed the river rather than risking swimming. But then I heard the bushes rustling. He was almost directly on top of me, not even following my trail. Either he saw me cross, or there was something going on. I didn't have a lot of stamina, but I knew I could swim faster than the Rex. And Dino's existing was just a risk I would have to take. Just as I thought that I was doomed, he laid down to regain stamina. Time to get out of Dodge. Out of stamina, out of time. If he came for me now, I was unlikely to escape. But it was fine. The servers restarted, and I didn't see him when I logged back in. All the same, I decided to leave Delta. I hadn't even crossed the threshold of the gate, though, when I got jumped. Not by a Rex, but by a solo Cerrado. Good sir. What are you thinking? I backed my way to the gate, because you see, if this dapper gentleman had come from behind me, chances were any buddies he had would also come from that direction. I passed through the gate and then had a choice to make. Either I could hard camp said gate until he gave up and ran away, or I could back up the hill into the bushes and ultimately fight him in the open should he decide to follow. I chose the second option. Of course, when I knocked him down, that was when my thrash attack decided to not go off when I actually wanted it to. Oh well. He was hurting enough that I knew he wouldn't be coming back anytime soon. West Rail had been exceptionally quiet, and I grew unhindered for a while as the migration and nearby patrols fed me well and allowed me to get my diets back up to where I preferred them. As full as possible. Upon my meander back over to the pond for a drink before beginning my trek to Highlands, I came across a dibble that was immediately on the defensive. I was extremely unconcerned. Thinking perhaps he'd been attacked previously by trikes, I maintained my peaceful casserole existence. But as I began moving toward Highlands, he gave me a warning. What is it, boy? Something in the bushes? I was cautious. He seemed careful about approaching too closely. I found nothing. Wow. This short-horned pointer must be broken. And then he ran off down the hill and away. Huh. Well, that was weird. Anyway, on to Highlands, I guess. There I found a lot of nothing, so I meandered to Delta again, which is where I hit Adult. Alright, see, that wasn't too difficult. Nothing like Rex anyway. A very, very slow walk in the park. And a few minutes later, I got the Prime mutation too. Sweet. Prime Trike. I was feeling pretty beefy now. Nothing even glanced in my direction, and somehow I hadn't seen a Rex since the one that found me when I was barely 6 tons. So I wandered toward Dibble Island. I knew the Rexes were probably all just sitting there. Existing. And sure enough, I was right. I arrived and heard a few over the hill, and saw 3 in the bushes on an island in the river I'd just crossed. Well, here I was. Time for the clash of titans I was so excited to see. I hadn't grown enough to fight trikes on my Rex, and I hadn't grown a trike to fight Rexes before now. So I wasn't really sure what to expect, except that if we hit each other in the face, it was supposed to trigger a sparring contest. I would have preferred to fight a normal Rex if I'm being completely honest. My Prime wasn't full yet, still had about 5% to go. And this one was a base skin, which meant he'd entombed at least once before, giving him buffed mutations. Still, I was a Prime Trike. The most OP of specimens, or so they say. And maybe, just maybe, a skilled Trike is that level of OP. I wouldn't know. I'm not a skilled Trike. I'm a played Trike once 5 months ago. I'm gonna fight a beefy monster Trike. I think I need some practice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like and comment your thoughts below. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for more content like this. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon.